Hi, everyone. My name is Homer Gonzalez, and I'm the Communications Coordinator for Waterloo Greenway. This week, we're so excited to be hosting a series of virtual conversations with past Creek Show artists on Facebook Live. For those of you who haven't heard of Creek Show before, it's our annual community-wide festival of light-based art installations along Waller Creek in downtown Austin. Since 2014, our organization has commissioned dozens of local artists to create these really magnificent site-specific art installations in an effort to raise awareness about the ongoing transformation of Waller Creek and our new 35-acre urban park system coming to downtown. Waterloo Park will be the first phase of Waterloo Greenway to open. It's under construction right now, but is scheduled to open next spring. So you can learn more about our project and our mission at waterloogreenway.org. All right, let's get started. So today I'm really excited to be chatting with Corey Beeg of OTA Plus. They created the Creek Zipper for Creek Show 2016. Hey Corey, how's it going?
Hi Homer, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the Creek Zipper.
Sure, yeah. So my name is Corey Beeg. I'm both an architect, so I'm a practicing architect, have a firm here in Austin. We have projects kind of all over the country, but I'm also an artist, so I do some art installation work, and then I'm also an academic. I teach at UT School of Architecture here in Austin. And so, yeah, this was a really great project. Because I'm an academic, all of the kind of work I do, whether it's buildings or installations, all connects to a larger agenda that I'm working on. And in this particular case, I was looking at digital fabrication, digital design, and how I could produce something at a large scale using some of the technologies that we currently have. So in this case, I was using CNC technology, which is, CNC routers are controlled by machines and cut out all the pieces. And so that allowed me to produce something as much larger than I'm used to with this kind of technology. And the Creek Show sort of expects that of you because the space is really large, the sites are really large. And so it required thinking about this at that kind of scale and how I would use these technologies to produce this piece of art in a pretty short amount of time. And so that was one of the challenges I was faced with, was just how to create something so big and also in such a difficult site as the creek, which is constantly changing within just literally weeks, and then with an installation of just a few days.
Yeah, it turned out amazing. This is really awesome. Here's another shot. So what was kind of your inspiration behind the design of this piece? And I guess, it's really awesome for the community to come out and explore Waller Creek and Waterloo Greenway and get to see these really amazing art installations. So what was one thing that you kind of hoped that people left with after checking out your art?
Yeah, I think, it's such a great experience. It's a great event to bring people downtown and also to connect to these sort of spaces that aren't really used all that much, even though they're really they're great spaces. They're right in the middle of downtown. They connect all these really, popular spots within the downtown area. And so part of it was just to bring exposure to the creek area and to navigating that part of the creek, which is a little lower than the street level. And the idea really started, just thinking. I lived in East Austin at the time. And so I was really just thinking about how I-35 and that area, there's a real sort of border between downtown and East Austin. And so part of the idea behind the zipper was to create some symbolic connection between kind of restitching that part of the city to East Austin. And so that was the idea of these strands weaving together. And also the idea that the creek eventually, with this flood control, this is sort of before that was completed. And so the idea was that, it would kind of bring attention to the past, floods that had occurred in the area. They would also disconnect East Austin from downtown. And they were fairly frequent. And so part of the idea was, how do you draw attention to that kind of history within the place, and also speculate on what the future is going to bring with this new development and the design that they're working on now.
Yeah, definitely. This is a really cool shot from underneath one of the tunnels.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that people couldn't experience that particular view. because it was one of my favorites. I was in waiters, installing this thing over days, and that's where I spent a lot of my time just looking back at it and making sure everything was level.
Yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine, especially working in the water, securing everything and yeah.
Yeah.
Here's an overhead shot. It's really great. So for future artists that may be watching that are interested in submitting an idea for Creek Show 2021, do you have any kind of words of wisdom for them if they're tuning in? Any advice you have from your experience?
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing was just getting to know your site. I'm not used to these dynamic environments building within them. I'm used to, obviously wind and sun and designing buildings for things that you have some kind of understanding of how they behave over time. But the creek is so dynamic that designing something for that, particularly if it's in the creek, is really difficult. And, this project, it was 4 years ago that I designed this installation. So the night before the election is when I started the install. And I had just had it so perfect. Like each of these pieces you can see in this picture are on these threaded rods. And the idea is that I could fine tune the threaded rods so that it created a perfect datum just floating over the creek, which is undulating and changing and very dynamic. So it's this very static datum that kind of represented above and below. And so I had it just totally perfect the day before, and I'd installed about 25% of it. And then it rained that night. And also the election brought some pretty horrible news. So the next day I was in a bummed out mood, just not really thinking anything happened with the rain, but I got down there and it had washed the entire thing away. So it broke off from I had tied it to those 3 pavers that are in that area. It broke from those and just crumbled up and then moved down the creek. It was still drizzly a little bit. I was in a bad mood. So I just thought all was lost. But fortunately, I had a huge group of students. So one of my advice, my offerings of advice would be to have a team at the ready in case things go wrong. I had like 15 students that jumped in. I had a good friend, Ryan Manning, who's an architect up in Fort Worth, and another friend in Innsbruck, Teresa, and then my wife joined in. So I had a big team that really just came to it on that particular day. I think just get our minds off everything.
Yeah.
But so, what we finally produced here and installed is maybe 60% of the final thing. And that's really what it meant to look like from that top view, where it's very organized. But it came together, I think that was part of the learning process, was embedding enough tolerance in the design so that if things do go wrong, there's a way to salvage it. So I think just, being able to adapt to these kind of changing conditions, being ready to deal with, difficulties that you might not foresee, especially in a site like this that's really dynamic, I think is really the best advice I could give.
Definitely. I'm glad you had a team with you to support you through that, because definitely, it's one of those things, how the saying goes, anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Yeah.
So just being prepared for, the elements and how that could impact your installation.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'd also say that just looking at this image reminded me, design something that can be easily disposed of. So fortunately I could recycle all of this. Otherwise you'll be left with, 20 cubic tons of material or however much in your backyard. So yeah, this all went to the East Austin salvage yard and was recycled, which was really great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool to kind of hear about where these installations end up. That's awesome. So before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, I think it's a great experience. So if you have the opportunity, I think it's lately it's been a design competition. So I'd really recommend, if you have some ideas, putting those forward for the project. It's a really good experience, and you won't be sorry, even if it is difficult. You learn a lot in the process, and it's such great exposure also from a community of people in Austin that really value design and value art and really want to take part in these sort of things. It's just great to connect with them and see people's response to the work. So I'd highly recommend doing it if you're an artist or architect out there. And then you can look forward with Clay Odom, who did a past installation. I think he did one maybe 2 years before me. Clay and I are working on a public art project for the airport. So stay tuned. We're using 3D printing and augmented reality for the construction of it. And I can't give too much away yet, but look for it in the next year. It'll be up there eventually.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one. Another challenge, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, Corey. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hopefully I'll see you soon in real life.
Yes. See you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all so much again. Stay tuned for more conversations with past Creek Show artists throughout the rest of the week. We have new conversations every afternoon through Friday. And don't forget to check out the illuminated Moody Amphitheater at Waterloo Park through Sunday, November 22nd. It's going to be lit up every night from 6 to 10 p.m. And so while this year's Creek Show will not take place in its traditional in-person format, we're really excited to invite the community to drive by on Red River and get a sneak peek at Waterloo Park. Yeah, the Moody Amphitheater looks so amazing at night, and it's really a sight to see. So be sure to check that out. You can learn more about that at creekshow.com. Special thanks to BBVA, 3M, The Word Company, and Waterloo Media for helping us commemorate the creative, cultural, and imaginative legacy of Creek Show. Thank you all so much again for watching. We'll see you again next time. Bye.